Hi there and welcome to the Explaining History YouTube channel. This is a very quick video just to talk you through a little model of note-taking. Now, assuming we are going to be studying something like the causes of the First World War, the causes of the French Revolution, the causes of the Second World War, the Civil War, really any major world event or world process, we need to have a think about how we can talk about that. So the answers that you give that kind of jumble all the factors and causes together aren't going to be, let's face it, particularly good ones. They're going to be confused, and they're going to make it very difficult for the examiner to mark you. Now, the half the job really with exams is to make life easier for the examiner. If you can clearly set out what it is you're trying to say in ordered, logical steps, then the examiner will reward you for that. They'll like you for that, and you'll be able to get your points across. So how do we do that? Well, let's take the example of the First World War. Okay, there are long-term factors, short-term factors, and then obviously a flashpoint, a spark factor or a trigger that really makes the events happen in the way that they do. And you can think of this perhaps as building up a kind of a powder keg, building up building up an explosive charge that finally a spark sets off. So we could look at three long-term factors. And long-term factors you could perhaps think of being things happening over the courses of, between 10 and say 50 years. It might even be longer, might be over 50 to 100 years. Short-term factors might be between 1 to 5 years. The first long-term factor we could look at might be, for example, the development of European empires throughout the 19th century, the development of imperial rivalries. A second long-term factor might be the development of new nation states in Europe, such as a united Germany. And a third long-term factor might be actually the decline of states, such as the decline of the Ottoman Empire that happens throughout the 19th century. You might find that there are short-term factors such as naval rivalries and the arms race between Great Britain and the German Empire. And another short-term factor you could perhaps argue would be the instability in the Balkans and the Balkan Wars that happen in the years before the First World War. So, finally we get to our flashpoint. And our flashpoint might be, well, it's obviously the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. Now, the assassination of one individual leads, confusingly to at that point, the biggest war the world had ever seen. And obviously, alone, it can't do. Alone, the assassination of one person, it doesn't make sense to say that a world war would break out as a result. But when you look at these long-term factors, these are the things that people are really fighting over. The flashpoint is almost the excuse. Now, the reason for showing you this is that this is a way that you can order your revision notes. You can think of it in terms of long-term factors. And it's also, if you get an essay on the question, you can start to use this model to answer the essay, and it'll be conveniently the way that you've revised it in your notes. So long-term factors, short-term factors, and a flashpoint, and you can apply that to almost any major event that you like to talk about.